Hey guys, I'm talking quiet because my son's still sleeping. I wanted to make this video to kind of condense my TI experiences in my life. Try to condense it into one video. It might end up being two videos. But I feel like I need to make a very brief, um, condensed version so that more people can understand. Some targeted individuals, they know they're targeted, but they don't have time to watch my whole playlist. So I've written down a few, I guess more than a few, things that I think are really important that I wanted to put in this video. I don't know if something's going to happen. I don't know what's going on. I've been harassed every time I leave the house. It seems like the cops are there, and now the welfare department's like harassing me about my son. So I don't know what's going to happen. So I just want to make sure I get this video out to people. First of all, starting at the beginning, when my mother got pregnant with me, she was on birth control, and my father was away on business. But the majority of the time, but when he would come home, he would use condoms. So it's kind of a mystery how my mother got pregnant with me in the beginning, to begin with. But then when I was a teenager, I started having nightmares about people in lab coats torturing me. And in my nightmares, I was really small. And so I had questioned my mom if she had ever left me anywhere when I was an infant in like a hospital environment. She said, yeah. They told her that she had to leave me in the hospital, and she doesn't remember how long I was there, but she thinks it was like 3 days or longer. And she wasn't there. None of my family members were there. I was left in the hospital with the staff of the hospital. That hospital is now closed. The next thing that I wanted to mention is the strange coincidences surrounding my parents' divorce and their remarriages and my aunt's death. When I was a young child, and I don't remember the exact age, my aunt had died, and before she had died, she had been complaining about some things that are very weird, and I don't want to go into details about it, but I just want to say that she was saying that I think that possibly there was some type of impersonation of my family members happening, because she was saying that my dad had done things that I just know that my dad wouldn't do, that he would not do. But I believe her, and I don't think that she was crazy. I think that because then she turned up dead after that. She was talking about things going on that were really weird, that I just knew my dad wouldn't do. But then right after that, she turned up dead. And supposedly she died of emphysema. But I don't really know. I was so young at the time. I just think that the circumstances are strange because of the stuff that she was describing that was going on. And then later my stepmother tried to say that she was schizophrenic, and then that alerted me even more that no, something was going on, because anytime they start saying that you're schizophrenic, it means they're trying to hide something. Because she wasn't schizophrenic, and my stepmother was just trying to establish a family link so that she could later say that I was schizophrenic. But I believe her. What she said happened to her, and I think that what was happening is, I think that the military, because I'm pretty sure that my aunt was working for the government at the time. And my dad also works for the government, or he did at the time. And so I think that possibly they're experimenting with impersonation technology of some kind, where they can actually, like, I think it's light bending technology, but I'll get to that. When I was between the ages of 7 and let me go back a little bit. During the time, also around the time of my aunt's death, as she's describing this weird stuff, and then she turned up dead. Around that same time, my dad started dating this woman, is my stepmother now, started dating her, having an affair with her. At the same time that was happening, this other military man, who's kind of a high-ranking military officer, started knocking on my mom's door and preaching to her, and my mom started doing Bible studies with him and his wife. Well, his wife died of a brain tumor at the same time that my dad divorced my mom, and then that guy asked my mom to marry her. So my mom married my stepdad at the same time that my dad divorced her, like within like months. And at the same time, around the same time, my aunt died, and around the same time that, my stepfather's ex-wife died of a brain tumor. So it was all very weird circumstances surrounding this stuff that was going on. When I went to live in my stepfather's house, with my mother, there were a lot of really weird things that happened in that house. I was in that house between the ages of 7 and 10, this one particular house that was right next door to the Jehovah's Witness church. I was in that house between the ages of 7 and 10. There were 3 really, really weird things that happened in that house. The first thing was there was this white van that waited for me after school. And I don't remember how many times, but I know that it was more than one time. And I only remember the instance of this one occasion where I came home, I saw the white van, I recognized it, I had seen it before, and there were men, about 3 men outside acting violently, and I was afraid, so I hid across the street. And the next thing that I remember was my mom running down the street calling after me. And when I got home, it was after 5 o'clock, and I got out of school at 2. So there was 3 hours of missing time with that white van that had waited for me more than one time. Okay. The other thing that happened during that time frame was I was in 4th grade during that time period. And when I was in 4th grade, I remember that we spent half the year studying the monarch butterfly, and we spent the other half of the year studying dinosaurs. And that was all I remember ever learning about in 4th grade. The other thing that was weird about 4th grade was we went on a 3-day field trip where we were blindfolded the entire time on the field trip. The entire time. And I look back on that and I think, yeah, that's really weird. And then the other weird thing that happened during that time period when I lived in that house, I remember a family friend was over, a family that was friends with my parents was over, and they had 3 kids, and we were all outside playing. And for some reason, we were in the parking lot of my house at that time, and it was dark out, but there was a big, huge light in the parking lot, and then there was woods all around the house, and there was this one driveway. There was like a thin kind of driveway that went out to the highway. And we saw these 3 solid black figures go through the woods and then through the driveway and then out through the other woods. And when they went through the driveway, we couldn't see their legs. So it was just their upper torsos, but no legs. We couldn't see any legs. And they were, like I said, they were solid black. Solid. You couldn't see through them. The parts that we could see were totally solid, but just all black. You could just see their torso, and they were moving very smooth, like they weren't, they were upright, but we could tell that they weren't running or anything, because it was a very smooth movement, and it was a little bit faster than a run. But now I look back, and I mean, we were terrified of this at the time. All of us were, because we all saw it. But, when I look back now, I realize that was some type of light bending technology that was being used. And that was in the 70s. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead now to like 1995, 96. It's not because there's nothing that happened, in between that time. It's simply because these are the most important things that I can think of to tell you guys about. 1995, 96, I was in like my early mid-20s, and that was when I first noticed the gangstalking. That was when I first noticed that strangers were approaching me in the grocery stores, in every public place, talking about things that were going on in my private life, stuff like that. I first noticed that in 1995, 96. It was also in 1995, 96 when I first started having the apocalyptic dreams, like the giant tidal wave hitting Los Angeles and the partial eclipse of the sun, and the earth catching on fire and that kind of stuff. That started in 95, 96. I don't know if it's relevant at all, but I had also just gotten back from Japan in 95, 96. But as I told you, weird stuff's been going on since my childhood, so I don't know. Let me just, oops, so I can see it better. Okay, same time in like 95, 96, I had gotten a phone call from my mom telling me that I should consider dating men for money. I was looking for a job. Totally insane thing to hear from anybody, but I guarantee you my mother would never say that, okay? So, that was the first time in my life that I experienced phone call interception, like conversation interception, where they would actually use the voice of my mother to say things to me. And I, at the time I didn't understand what was happening, but when I look back, I know that's exactly what they were doing, because I know my mother would never say that, and I know what I heard. So they do have that technology. I also, well, I'll get to that later, but I think that they have technology that can alter the appearance of someone, like the appearance of their face, or maybe even more than that. I'll get to that in a minute. Also in 1995, 96, I had an episode of missing time. I was working or trying to work as a musician at the time, and I can tell this is probably going to be 2 videos, so I'm trying to say this as fast as I can and make this short. I was working as a singer at the time. I had been working as a musical theater performer in Japan, and I'd gotten back and I decided I was going to start doing musician stuff. I got a guitar, started writing songs, and I was going to start, I was going to join it. I was going to start a band with this one musician, and I had gone to a jam session one night, and he asked me if I wanted to go to a party in Joshua Tree, and I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And he said, there's going to be NASA people there, and I thought that was kind of weird. And then he said, oh, you have to be approved by this one guy, this producer. This is what he said. He said you have to be approved by this producer before you can go to this party. And he just lives right around the corner. And I really thought that was weird. I really, really did. But I trusted this guy, and I shouldn't not have, but I did at the time. And so we went over to this, supposedly this producer's house, right? Well, it ended up being a storage unit. And he goes, yeah, I know it's weird, but he lives in this storage unit. So we go knock on the door, and we go into this storage unit where this guy is living. And next thing I know, I fell asleep, and I didn't wait. And the next thing when I woke up, it was like 9 o'clock in the morning. And we had gone over there, early in the evening. It wasn't, not early, but it wasn't late. So, we went to the jam session, and we left the jam session early. We left before the jam session was even over. So, and in Los Angeles, because this is in Hollywood, clubs close at like 2. So we left there, maybe around midnight or somewhere around there. And I woke up at 9 o'clock the next day. My purse was missing, which they later ran somewhere and got my purse, which I thought was really weird because I'd fallen asleep on this one chair and my purse was nowhere around that chair. So I know they moved me. I ended up having a bump on my eyebrow that is still there. And the other thing was I met this years and years and years. I started having these nightmares about being in a train, being an underground train or something. And just all kinds of really weird nightmares that I started having. And flying in an elevator up to the moon. And just when I say weird, I mean really weird. And I wasn't interested in any of that stuff at that time in my life. I was musical theater. I didn't do that. I didn't care about stuff like that. It's only now because I've been researching so much because of what's happened to me. But anyway, I met this military guy years and years and years later, and he said that he recognized me. And he said that he was sure that I was one of the civilians he saw in an airplane hangar at the military base in Joshua Tree. Okay? Not only that,
It's like near Joshua Tree. I can't remember the name of it.